Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Today's episode has a lot going on. There are just a ton of things I want to talk to you guys about. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate all of the support. We are in match number 3 of our second group. We're in the finals. I'm facing a dude named MacReady138. Maybe it's MacReady138. But he is in the Wolfpack, which is one of the very top PvP guilds out there. So really strong everything. He has Supreme Leader Kylo, not the ultimate, but he does have the Supreme Leader. Looking at our stats, he has me destroyed on relics, at least on the top end relics. Lots of tier 7 stuff, pretty scary. And if you look at our roster overall, I do have an advantage in gear 13 gear and also in gear 12, so I have more of that. And speed mods, we're pretty close. I have a slight advantage, but it's nothing too huge. So we've got some interesting stuff going on. In terms of our lifetime banners, his lifetime is really close to mine, actually. Not something I necessarily look for, though this is the finals, so we probably do want some kind of a challenge. And you just always prefer those challenges to be a different day. So real quick, I do want to point out here, looking at the map, I did my defenses a little bit lighter than usual. You can see I have Jedi Revan up front on the bottom. I have General Skywalker in the front, and then General Grievous. Those are my 3 meta teams. I also have Nightsisters on defense, and then the rest of the teams is like Geonosians and Jedi Training Ray and Bounty Hunters. They're all good banner stealers, but I did go a little lighter than usual after scouting my opponent. I just wasn't sure what they were going to take. They traditionally go extremely heavy on defense. Normally it's just, it's 4 or 5 meta teams. I thought that was probably what they were going to do again here, and that was already proved a little bit false potentially by the teams that are lining up here. One thing I want to point out is their Darth Revan is actually 1 speed faster than mine normally, but for this particular match, I don't know why, but they made their Darth Revan slower. Apparently they wanted to give faster mods to someone, though I wasn't sure who or what. So that did open the door for me to take my own Darth Revan team in to be able to counter it, which I did keep my Darth Revan this time. So one thing I wanted to try, though, and maybe it was a little crazy, I wanted to try Darth Revan counter to his Darth Revan. He doesn't have Bastila here. I wanted to use my Darth Revan and Bastila and save Malak for a different squad or a different situation, and so that's what I chose to do. I've no idea, though. I've never tried it before. I've theorized on it. I felt like this was a good opportunity.
I'm gonna try something, okay? I have no idea if it's gonna work.
So I wanted to take this team against another squad that didn't have Bastila, a squad that I was faster than with Darth Revan, and I wanted to save Malak because I fully expected my opponent to have like Padme and Jedi Revan in the back, or maybe even Supreme Leader Kylo. Just after my scouting, I thought that was what I was expecting, or that's what I was expecting. So wanted to go as light as possible here, and the goal here is to get Shock off with Darth Revan, and then Bastila comes in and just fries everyone. However, Shock, I needed Shock to land on either Sith Empire Trooper or Malak for this to work, and it didn't land on either of them. So instead I did my suite of debuffs from Bastila through my grenades from HK, and it did manage to just evaporate their Marauder, which is nice. And then I did, from the grenades, I was able to actually get Darth Revan down to 50%, or rather get their Darth Revan down to have death mark on him from my Darth Revan, killed him, and it was all over. So 57 banners, pretty decent.
Yes!
Oh, that worked a treat. That was so crazy.
I had no idea if that was gonna work.
So was able to beat that squad really happy with that result. My opponent had messed around with his mods. Clearly we didn't want that squad to be overpowered, but with the scouting, that it was really important to note that the scouting report was totally wrong because it went off of his current mods, not his locked-in mods. I wanted to use my Kylo Ren team here, First Order, to counter theirs, and this is a full Relic 7 squad, and they all have really crazy mods. My First Order officer is really fast. His is only like a couple speed slower than mine. So put taunting tech onto Kylo Ren, just like normal. We have Watt here. I figured this would be a pretty easy mirror match. You normally, First Order doesn't play very well with the AI, and I don't know if I've ever lost to First Order while they're on defense. So we're just trying to kill Red Trooper, kill First Order Officer, and then just beat both of the Kylos slowly and control the board. And clearly I'm not doing that well. Red Trooper is stunned, but First Order Officer is not, and he was not taking damage because Kylo kept taunting. And then eventually, First Order Officer actually cleansed Sith Trooper, which wasn't awesome. Did not appreciate that. Probably should have stunned someone other than Kylo there, but that didn't work. Watt got evaporated, and then I realized they're all going to take a turn here. I took a long time to think. They're all going to take a turn directly after my First Order Executioner, which is almost dead anyways. He's going to go, and then they're all going to go and kill my whole team. So what should I do? Should I target the correct character, the one that I'm working on, the First Order Officer, or Sith Trooper, or should I just finish off their Kylo Ren? I was going to lose. Look at my life. I was sure I was going to lose, so I took out First Order, or Kylo Ren unmasked, because he's the lead, and then I died, so that was completely unexpected.
I think I'm having a panic attack.
Come here.
Yeah,
Right here.
this is bad.
So in my scouting of my opponent, they had not really in the past, or at least not recently, been putting any squads in that I could use troopers against, because their defense was so stacked. But in this case, they put Nightsisters down for the first time in a very long time, and I outsped them by a little bit, and so I decided if I have an opportunity to use troopers anywhere against this opponent because of how strong their defense is going to be, then I just need to take it, and this was going to be a good kind of reset button. I wanted to get away from the First Order fiasco there, and so this was a good opportunity. Now, the standard thing is to have Stark use his buffs right away. He's first. That's going to chain to Death Trooper, who's going to chain after he throws his grenade and dispels zombie and increases cooldowns. Then Range Trooper goes next. Range Trooper does buffs, and then everyone else. It's just kind of a free-for-all turkey shoot, and eventually all the Nightsisters disappear, and this time it worked just fine. Normally you take a couple hits from Nightsisters. I did, but I healed from them. Getting 60 was a great result. So happy enough with that. Decided to jump in against this team that doesn't have a leader anymore, and just use my Emperor Palpatine team, and you see that Nihilus is already dead. Just gets disintegrated like the first 10 seconds. It's horrible. Now they have all this extra turn meter because it's all loaded, and Kylo Ren original is providing them a ton of turn meters. So what I'm doing here is I put isolate on that Kylo Ren, because that way when he does his AoE, which he'll keep doing, the AI is not smart enough to realize that it's ineffectual. Now that I have isolate on him though, that AoE is not going to actually help anyone. So, or at least it's not going to give everyone the speed up that they want. So, killed Sith Empire Trooper. I keep calling him that, Red Trooper. And after he died, then it's a free-for-all. We want to take out Officer because he's relatively squishy. We do need to be careful about Executioner because he's consistently loading up on damage, and then of course the Relic 7 Kylo Ren is also going to be an issue, and I just can't say it enough, like this squad just hits so hard. My opponent modded them very well, and Relic 7 is no joke. So that's absolutely something I'm going to be looking at. Maitreya and Nihilus actually right now, before GA lock for next round, are Relic 3 each instead of Gear 12. So, you know, I suppose Relic 7 First Order Executioner should just destroy Nihilus, but Nihilus just keeps getting worked, and something needed to change. So hopefully that's going to work. Now, just working down these guys, I mean, you can see Treya's health, like it's in the yellow right now. She's not doing too hot. Just because he's doing all this damage from AoEs, and that's it. So 30 banners is not great. That means I dropped 30 total on a squad that I could have used Jedi Training Rey on if I had had her available. So in the back, I had fully expected my opponent to be have two really strong meta teams, but instead he kept those for offense, which is way different than he's done in the past. So completely tricked me, really surprising. You know, great to beat that team up top, I guess, but this wasn't what was in the plan. I had taken wrong squads, and I was suddenly in a lot of danger, actually, from him just one-shotting all of my teams without any recourse on my end.
What? I see this as an absolute win.
So really, my only hope here was that my opponent would think that I had Supreme Leader Kylo in the back and therefore save his General Skywalker for the back zone. And if he did that, then he would have to use Commander Luke to counter my General Skywalker that was on defense, hopefully lose, and then I'd be able to catch up on banners. Otherwise, I needed to be as efficient as possible. I couldn't lose anymore, so I'm undersizing this really fast, really dangerous Jango squad. Nest is 354 speed after the Jango lead. She is just completely lightning quick. You see that I used the stun on Bosk first to keep him from taunting. Then I used my Commander Luke's special to be able to take turn meter off of Jango. After that, you see Dengar was about to go, he was full of turn meter, so I shot him with Han, hoping to reduce his turn meter. It went better than expected and just killed Dengar, which is probably the first time that's ever happened in anyone's battle in the history of this game, because Dengar is always the last bounty hunter to die. And you know, Jango I needed to take out because I couldn't afford to have my turn meter reduced or negated, my turn meter gains from Commander Luke negated from his flames. And so after that, we're just kind of picking people off as we can, trying to contain Bosk, all this stuff, and in the end, got 61. I took Stormtrooper Han there, by the way, just as a guy who could regenerate his protection and would potentially protect me some, but at the same time wouldn't cost me extra banners. I needed as many banners as I could get, and so anyways, that's the reasoning behind why I took Stormtrooper Han and not someone like Old Ben, who would inevitably have just costed me an extra banner for taking them in the first place. At some point, it occurred to me that I had actually done a fairly poor job of planning what teams I had available to take on my opponent's teams, and therefore I didn't really have another squad. I had 3 squads I needed to take out, and I just didn't have 3 squads to be able to take them out with. So these are 2 screenshots of my basically all the characters I have left. Need to take out a pretty high relic resistance team without BB-8. I needed to take a General Grievous squad with BB-8, and I needed to take out a Hux lead First Order Leftovers team. Between these like 8, I can't even count, 12 characters here. Gonna be pretty tough. I mean, I had a few other characters too, obviously, but these were my main ones, and basically the ones that were easy to screenshot. So here, let's see what I decided to do. Well, you guys can see, I already know. So, the bottom zone, all that's left on the top zone is that Grievous squad. I do have a plan for him, which I will eventually tell you guys about, but needed to take out either the Hux team or the Jedi Training Rey team in the bottom zone with something. So I went with Hux lead with First Order, and I took Malak because I'd saved him from that Darth Revan fight, you remember. And I have Thrawn here as well. Now my Thrawn is exactly 1 speed faster than their Hux. Their Hux is jacked on his speed, super fast. My Thrawn is gear 13 now, which gave him the extra speed to outspeed him, so that was helpful. And now I don't really have a rhyme or reason to this. This team is a hodgepodge. Taking Malak with First Order seems strange, and then Thrawn, I don't know. Like, they're all good characters, and you know, I have a good chance of doing some good damage to this squad, but I just wasn't sure. Plus, my Hux is not denying them turn meter gain. However, their Hux is denying me turn meter gain, and I wasn't sure if that was going to apply to my team with Thrawn, for instance, transferring it. What occurs to me after the fact is, of course, their Hux needs to have advantage for him to stop me from gaining turn meter. So if you see me doing something strange with Thrawn and not passing turn meter off, it's probably just because I'm worried about that aspect, and you know, instead of stopping to think about it for like 3 seconds, I just went in and, you know, reacted to it. So you see Thrawn, for a second I was going to pass turn meter. I could have, because Hux did not have advantage at the time, but instead I just elected to shoot because Hux was there and presumably just taking turn meter from me. So killed First Order Stormtrooper, who is way more tanky now that he has relics. And you see I'm looking at Hux's stuff now. Now he has advantage, so he's denying me turn meter gain. But you'll notice that between Malak and my First Order Stormtrooper, the rest of my characters have actually stayed relatively safe. So, you know, that's nice. We want to take out Hux as soon as we can. And now I felt like there was a pretty good chance, actually, of me being able to just get the win here. So in my attempt to get as many banners as I could, the things I was thinking about were things like Malak doesn't have full health right now. I'll get the banner for his protection because of the way his kit reads, but I am going to need some health. I also need to give a little bit of protection to Hux if possible. Thrawn is great for that, so he can manage it. I'm just doing basics here because I want Malak to have a turn to do his force drain thing and revive or get back to full health. Didn't happen, unfortunately. 58 though, pretty good for a thrown together hodgepodge that I wasn't certain of to begin with.
Get your love.
Alright, so we have General Grievous left with BB-8. We have a Jedi Training Rey team with high relics, and they don't have BB-8, however, and decided that Padme was the team to use down here. Kenobi, the one other factor is I need one more kill with fleet commanders to be able to get a feat worth 250 banners, which is more than a zone. So really needed that if possible. I've gotten all the other feats. It would be great to get this one. So took Kenobi, took Shock T for 2 reasons. One, to call an assist on Kenobi to help enhance my chances. And second, to just be able to heal a little bit of health, or rather protection, on one of my characters. So here I'm trying to figure out what should I do. They have a ton of Dispel. I really want to use my big Dispel slash protection up buff, but I decided to wait for a little bit, get a big kick on their Resistance hero Finn, who is only gear 11, and was able to take him down right away. So that was good, and we want to reduce their turn meter gain as much as possible, which means basically not getting exposed and not letting them, oh, you just don't want them to take a lot of turns. So here I'm just trying to figure out what exactly I want to do. I'm taking my time in this because we got to be careful. And I had set it up perfectly to have Kenobi go in and stomp Resistance Trooper. And then, of course, Resistance Trooper shot Shock T. She had counter up and just pwned the Resistance Trooper. And then Anakin went. I should have had him go and hit Jedi Training Rey and miss the foresight, but of course instead I went and had him go and one-shot the Finn, and now all that's left is Rey, and Kenobi went. He should have swung at Rey and missed, and then Shakti could have called him for the assist and one shot. That didn't happen either, but ended up with 60 banners. Did not get the fleet commander feat rather, so stuck on 11 of 12. I hate that feat, really frustrating, but really it's just my own fault as well.
There's an idiot in the landing zone.
So my opponent was on this whole time, and I wasn't sure. You can see I took a couple screenshots of their different game states. So they changed their arena team, they climbed in arena, and they were just clearly just waiting for me to finish my attacks, and I just decided I didn't want them to know that my Supreme Leader Kylo was alive, and they clearly had their Kylo ready to solo something, considering they didn't have any First Order teams that weren't on defense, so that I knew that they were probably just watching to see what my score was, to see if my Kylo was in the back or not. So at this point, I think it's fairly obvious I planned on taking out their General Grievous with my Supreme Leader Kylo, and I just didn't want him to see what my score was and get any kind of information from that. And frankly, I felt frustrated. I'm not like annoyed at my opponent, but it is a little bit frustrating when your opponent is clearly watching and clearly waiting for you to make all the attacks so that they have the advantage and can make better decisions. I hit a point where I was annoyed and I dug my heels in and just decided to go to bed. Normally, that's the first time I've ever not attacked all the way before I went to bed. So just decided to try to outlast my opponent if possible. When I woke up, my opponent had sent me a message saying he made a huge mistake. He tried to solo my Jedi Training Rey and he had failed. And so I just responded like, well, I'm going to try the same against your General Grievous here. I hope I didn't just totally miscalculate. So the premise here of taking my Supreme Leader Kylo against General Grievous, I don't have his ultimate or anything. He's Relic 7, so he's pretty strong. But the thing is, they reduce my turn meter so much that I gain a huge amount of max health. His kit, every time his turn meter is reduced, he gains a lot of max health, and he becomes almost impossible to kill. So here I jumped in. It's just a solo. If I lose this, I have no characters that can actually beat this General Grievous squad. Grievous himself is Relic 7, and the rest of the team isn't super well relicked. I think B1 had a few good levels, but otherwise not super scary. And so I at least took out BB-8 before he could go, and so that was nice. And now I'm just going to be stuck hitting Magnagard for a while, who is relicked, and hopefully they don't just completely annihilate me. I only have 110k health, which sounds like a lot, but for a Galactic Legend alone against General Grievous, that doesn't seem like a lot. But you see, I still have protection, I still have health here after taking all of these hits. And honestly, it never got to the scary point in this fight. Like, there was never a point where I was like, oh man, I'm just dead, I'm screwed. Instead, he just kind of kept growing his health and protection, which is nice. Kind of crazy to think that a Galactic Legend can just solo a meta team like this, but I guess I'm not going to complain. So getting through B1 and then eventually, hopefully, to General Grievous. I do have an undispellable stun for 2 turns on Grievous, so that's nice. And probably should have been doing basics on B1 more, because that does 2 stacks of damage rather than just 1 with the siphon, but doesn't really matter either way.
And his name is John C.
So I got the win against General Grievous with Supreme Leader Kylo, and actually at this point I had just won. My opponent did one-shot the rest of my roster like I had predicted. He'd used Jedi Training Rey, though, and tried to take her out. Didn't work, and now I of course I wanted to get as many banners as I could. I felt sick about not getting a kill using another fleet commander, but one way or another. Someone told me actually that you could use your fleet commander, your capital ship, to take someone out, and that would count toward the feat. So I had that in the back of my mind. My opponent did have Malevolence, so a bunch of weaker ships, but I also wasn't going to try that at the potential cost of winning. I just wanted to be done with this battle. And you'll note that I actually took a different fleet than usual. I normally don't have 5s on my starting lineup, but against these guys, my buddy Deranged sent me a video. I don't have any people on my shard to actually practice against Malevolence. My fleet shard is pretty quiet, so what I'm doing, I'm focusing down Sunfac, and eventually 5s is going to get his AoE. He took out the Vulture Droid, he took out the Sunfac, and part of that is Sunfac was only gear 12, so not super resilient, but I think I could have taken out a significantly stronger one there. Next, I took Plo as my first reinforcement, which is not my standard, but Plo was able to dispel a ton of my debuffs and reduce their ability to do a lot of damage to me, because buzz droids are really the source of a ton of damage from this squad. So their spy came in, and actually they only have one reinforcement here, I assume, because they want to make sure that spy is the one that comes in, and Malevolence doesn't really need a ton of reinforcements, frankly, so because they keep growing Vulture Droids. So just trying to focus down Hyena Bomber now, which is a super resilient ship. Really impressed with it at 7 stars. Just doesn't die. It takes a long time to get through it. So eventually I lied, because it does actually die, because I know that because I killed it. And now I was kind of worried at first that maybe my opponent had the Falcon hidden here or something, but didn't come in and got 60 banners. So pretty good score. I would say 60 is kind of my my golden standard for fleets. If you can get 60 or more, you should be happy and do that dance thing that I showed you guys previously. So at this point, my opponent, I don't believe, could win, even if he cleared my Jedi Training Ray. And so I asked him, I was like, what, did Ray just not give you a turn? Did they just manage to kill you? What happened? And he said that he got a few turns, but it was all just basics, because I got ability block on him, and the basics were all against L3, who is relict, and had foresight apparently, so just couldn't do any damage, any lasting damage. And I think he eventually just timed out, is what I assume from what he was saying. It'll be interesting to see what the GAC history says. Otherwise, he did one-shot all of my teams. And here's the crazy thing was, I got lucky, because if my opponent had just used his Supreme Leader Kylo on my General Grievous in the first place, and then used whatever team they used to take out the General Grievous squad on my Rey, I would have lost for sure. So not really sure what exactly happened. Once again, it'll be interesting to see their Grand Arena history. But, I mean, a win is a win. It's nice to get a win against a really good player. I did get pretty lucky there. Not something I want to repeat again, that's for sure. But I did get to see 2 stories about Supreme Leader Kylo and what they can solo. One of them tried to kill a General Grievous squad, which is a meta team, and he managed it easily. The other one tried to take out a sub-meta team and just couldn't put a scratch in the paint even. So kind of cool there. And anyways, one thing I do want to point out though actually is, even despite that fail at the end, my opponent, if he had gotten a full 60 plus banners, they would have beat me by 1 point. But my efficiency, or rather my teams on defense, were strong enough to take a ton of banners from him and make it an actual pretty close match. So happy enough with that. And really, if it had gotten close enough, maybe I could have taken less ships. I didn't really need a second or a third reinforcement. Maybe I could have made it, I don't know, a draw or something. It really doesn't matter that much. But what does matter is I got the win. I'm at 6-0. I'm completely out of contention for top 10 because I did not get that feat. And frankly, I'm glad because I do not want to have to do the stupid trench run feat that's going to be present in the next one. Getting kills with Biggs and Wedge just doesn't sound like any level of fun that I'm prepared to look at. Probably would have had to collude with some opponent of mine. Not really that fun. So one way or another, like I keep saying, I got the win. I did get lucky, but 6-0, we can have a perfect season still. I guess the goal now is what, top 50, top 100, something like that, and go 12-0 again. I haven't done that since the second season. So I think I'm gonna let you guys go here. And oh, one thing I wanted to point out, my opponent was a really great sport. We talked for a little bit, and it was frustrating to me that they were waiting to make their attacks, and I didn't like level any accusations or anything. I'm not like upset at my opponent. It was in the moment quite frustrating that they were waiting. I think it was a sound tactical decision on their end though. So no animosity toward them whatsoever. Great opponent, great guild that he's in. Really happy that I came away with a win, regardless of how lucky I was. And I am going to let you guys go here now. So stay tuned for next week. It's going to be great. I'm sure all my opponents are going to have ridiculous rosters as well. So thank you all so much for watching. And remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.